Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Elevated Platicas podcast. My name is Romeo Nava, and I am your co host of the show.
And I'm Yesenia, and I am your co host.
And to everyone that listened to the first episode and gave us feedback about it, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your feedback. We truly appreciate it. Super cool to hear that people have listened to it. And so we're super excited to do another episode. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited about today because we are again doing our second episode, and we really appreciated the feedback and the support. So I'm excited to do another one today. And we did talk about our cannabis consumption and like how that started with our healing journey. And so we want to continue that on today. We want to set intentions when we consume cannabis. I know for myself that helps me, especially when I'm having a hard time, especially like with my anxiety. I definitely try to think of and tell myself, like, okay, what's your intention if you're going to use cannabis? And it's usually to kind of work through the feelings that I have. So I think that just kind of helps with cannabis being that tool, in our healing journey. So we did consume today. I took an edible earlier, and you did as well, right?
Yeah, I took an edible as well.
Okay. Yeah. So our intention for today, for our use, is to just be able to be vulnerable and to be able to connect. And you had said like to have more of like a fluidity, right, in the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, I find that cannabis in general helps me think more freely. Yeah, just a more free and clear line of thinking, I think.
And that's exactly what we want to feel like
Yeah.
in these episodes so that we can really show others like the power of vulnerability, especially in your healing journey. So for today, we're going to do something fun, start off with something fun and use some questions, a deck of cards, some questions to kind of get the conversations going.
Yeah, so these are from Best Self. They're called Icebreakers Deeper Talk. Pretty sure it was a gift.
Oh,
Don't
really?
Yeah, I don't
Oh, nice.
remember who gave it to me.
It's a really good
If I'm
gift
forgetting, I'm
for you.
sorry. Yeah, it was a yeah, it's been a really good gift. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it just has cards with like questions to prompt conversation. So, each of us picked one card and we're just going to yeah, have a raw reaction to what the question is. So, the one that you picked is, what do you love about yourself that you worry others will struggle to accept?
Do you want me to go first?
Whatever you want. If something comes to mind. Did you pick this one or did I pick this one?
I think you did. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Sorry, I picked this one.
Mm.
Okay, so maybe then I'll go since I
Yeah.
picked it. So what came to mind is I think just my way of thinking overall. You know, being so passionate about finance, investing, wellness, just in general being the best version of myself. I'm obsessed with that. Any way I can become better, whether that's going to therapy, exercising, eating healthier, learning more about finance, investing, anything in that realm. I'm obsessed with all of that stuff. So I feel like sometimes people might be annoyed by that or something. I don't know that that's all I want to talk about is like just being better, being better. I feel like I can see it being a lot, just wanting to talk about that stuff all the time. But
Like, what's an example of you doing that, like at a family get together?
yeah, I mean, let's say we're at a family get together and we're just having conversation, catching up. I would say my inclination is to ask deep questions, like
Mm-hmm.
that's who I am, that's how I think, and that's how I operate on the day-to-day basis, right? Like I'm constantly thinking about this stuff. And so I think maybe for some people that's not the case. And so maybe that can be uncomfortable or whatever because it's not something they think about day to day, where I might be like, "Oh, where do you see yourself in 10 years or 20 years?" Like maybe that could come off to some people as like an uncomfortable question, like, "Well, I don't even know, like haven't thought of that or whatever." So something like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, like I said, I think about stuff like that constantly. Like, where do I see myself and how do I get there? What am I doing today to get to that life that I envision? So that's just how I operate on a day-to-day basis. And so in another way, it has created some problems for me, like just being present because I'm so forward thinking. It's like,
Mm,
okay, how do I also stay present and be happy
right.
with where I am now? Not just be like, oh, in the future, I'll be doing this and that, and not really be enjoying the present. So I think that's how it manifests itself for how I think people might feel about it, and then how it also affects me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, it might not be the case. Like, it might not bother people. I think, especially with our family, I mean, they know already that's how I am. I'm not trying to pry or ask uncomfortable questions. That's just genuinely how I am. And I kind of want to know what makes people tick, so to speak. I want to
Yeah.
know what motivates people, what inspires them, because I feel like that's really what makes you who you are. Like, if you ask me that stuff, you're going to know who I am and who I
Mm-hmm.
want to be. If you get to know my dreams, my passions, where I want to be in the future, that will tell you a lot about who I am, as a father, a husband, all of that, and so in the same way, that's how I approach like getting to know somebody or connecting. And like I said, for some people, it can be maybe like off putting,
Yeah.
especially in the corporate world. I've experienced that a lot. It's all small talk and everything. So
Yeah.
I've always been terrible at small talk. As soon as I sense the small talk, I just shut down. I'm just like, I
Mm-hmm.
have no interest. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Small talk. Small talk's hard for me too, for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I mean, I could see like what you're saying, like how that you perceive that of that others think of you. And I think even just being your sister, like throughout the years, I will say like your motivation, your drive sometimes can be intimidating to me. But because I know you so well, and obviously like I have respect for you and all that, like it's not necessarily jealousy. It's more like, oh damn, like he's doing it, like I definitely can do it. But then I had to learn like I don't need to push myself in that way because I just don't have capacity for that. Like you definitely have the capacity to do that. And I think sometimes you have to even find the balance, like you said, sometimes it's too much, and then you have to like kind of reel yourself back in and like, okay, it's okay, like I'm doing good. But I definitely have seen that from my side. But I feel like if others are also perceiving it that way, maybe that's something that internally, like, why am I feeling like that? So because like I said, for me, like if I see you that you're like, when you told me about the meditation thing, when you first started meditating and you're like you should do it, it's like 10 minutes a day, and I'm like, I know it sounds so easy, but I literally just like, I felt like I just couldn't apply it every single day.
Yeah.
But that's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I did compare myself at first
Hmm.
with that, like if he can do it, I can do it. But then I'm like, okay, you don't need to compare yourself. That's more of like me trying to figure those internal things out.
Yeah.
But do you want to read the question again? That way I can go
Yeah,
just to like
I just wanted
refresh.
to
Oh
add
yeah.
one thought what you were saying, and I think kind of combined with that, I also tend to, when people talk to me about what's going on with them, my instinct is to try and give advice,
Mm-hmm.
and just
Yeah.
try to share whatever I'm doing or anything that might help.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense, I also like, I don't want to come off as like I'm preaching or I know everything, because that's like the opposite of how I operate, like
Mm-hmm.
I know that I don't know everything, right? I'm not the smartest person or whatever. I don't know everything. There's so much I have to learn. And I mean, that's where I'm at in my journey. I'm trying to surround myself with people who are way smarter than me. I'm trying to be the dumbest person in the group so that I can learn. But yeah, when I talk to people, especially our family or whatever, I just have this need to, I know what's working for me and maybe it can work for them too. So I have this need to just share that. So sometimes I fear that I'm coming off as like, I know everything, or I'm just preaching down to them or whatever, which is never my intention. And I do think most people know that. So it's just probably something internally that,
Yeah.
I'm maybe creating or whatever.
That you're working through.
Yeah. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to add that. But the question was, what do you love about yourself that you worry others will struggle to accept?
So I feel like mine is kind of similar to yours in a different way, if that makes any sense. But for me, I think it's definitely like that I am a very emotional person. I am a very deep person as well too. I am very emotional. And I think over the years I've definitely tried so hard to hide how emotional I am by just kind of keeping it closed doors. And I think the only reason why I say that in that way is because I felt like it was just always too intense, even too intense for me, like my feelings. And so I've had to learn, especially like in therapy, all the the therapy that I was talking about before that I've been in for so long, it has helped me control those emotions, because I do also believe that I'm an empath. So I really do, when I talk to somebody and they're like telling me what they're going through, like my first instinct is like, how can I help? I want to just help everybody. I want to help them. I'm like, can I do something for you, without even thinking like, is this going to affect me? Because then I'm just like helping everybody. And I think with having the kids, it's definitely pushed me to be able to be like, you need to prioritize not only myself first, but like the family. So
Yeah.
it's like you really need to kind of control that emotional part. And I think I feel like others might feel kind of overwhelmed by my emotions. So I think that's something that I kind of think about. Like, I don't want people to think I'm too much,
Yeah.
and I don't want to feel that,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, I am a little emotional. Actually, I am very emotional.
Yeah.
And again, it's like even my word usage, right? As I'm
Yeah.
talking about it, I'm like trying to minimize it,
Yeah.
but I'm catching myself. And the reality is that I am very emotional. I'm human. A lot of us are very emotional, except, people I think right away emotional and they think like sad. But like anger can be an emotion, that can be a very emotional person if they're angry all of the time. Mine is definitely more like a lot of sadness. It can be anger as well, but I just feel like I feel it a lot. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, I pick up on others' feelings and I carry them. So I can just come across as intense at times. So I think that's what, when I read that card, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of like what I'm thinking. It's
Yeah.
just my emotions.
What that makes me think about is Monica's is very emotional too. And we've had conversations before where I've kind of told her something similar. I've told her, I think I'm also very emotional. It's just very different than how you're emotional, because
Yeah,
hers
true.
is more sadness or crying. And I've told her, like, I think I'm very emotional as well, but it's more like you said, also like anger or frustration, temper.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that's me being emotional.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think if someone says emotional, you think like, oh, someone's like either sensitive or they're crying all the time. But no, there can be different types of emotional, because there's a range of emotions. It's not just sadness. So
Yeah.
emotional can be you just feel a lot of emotions, whatever those emotions are. So emotional can mean lots of different things and it can be expressed in very different ways. But I think just learning that we are human and emotions are part of being human, there's no way to get rid of them or anything. Just accepting the emotions that you do have and just trying to understand them, but not try and get rid of them because you can't.
And that's exactly where I'm at, is like really being accepting that this is how I am. Because as you were talking, I was also thinking about, why do we come to like these realizations as adults? Like, why do we think these things?
Yeah.
As we're answering that question, like, what do we worry about others thinking of? It comes from how we grew up. And for me, like, I was the emotional kid. I was always crying. And I remember like when, our parents would tell us or would try to discipline us, that was a big one for me, like, stop crying. And I remember even as a teenager, I was always crying, always. And it was hard because it was so drilled into me, like, you need to stop. And that's why for so long I felt like so bad about my emotions or showing them and being vulnerable, because it was just too much. And that's what I
Hmm.
was taught since I was young. But it's crazy how long it has taken me, even to this, age. I'm still kind of like accepting that. I'm still kind of learning, how do I open up
Yeah.
again, because I
Hmm.
do worry that people will be like, "Whoa, you're
Yeah.
just too intense." But yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. So I chose this one. What key life advice did you learn from children? So for me, with the kids, I mean, obviously they're still little, so I'm sure I have so much more to learn. But so far, I think what has been the most impactful for me with the kids is that I need to be true to myself and have love for myself. Because I was trying to figure out in my mind, I remember when I was first having Mateo, and I'm like, I just want to be the best mom. I want to teach him everything. And I'm like, how do I do that? Like, what's the best way to do that? And the realization was that I need to model everything. If I want them to be kind, I have to be kind. If I want them to be respectful, then I need to do that. And that even includes with myself, like the relationship with myself. Like, what does that look like? So that journey has been started since I had Mateo, and then up to now, it's really focusing on that self love. And I always turn it back to me. And it's been really powerful for me in my healing journey because I just feel like it's such a big, like, you kind of, when you look at your kids, you're like, there's a lot riding on this, like I have to deliver as a good parent. So for me, I'm focusing on being the best example for them has been so helpful for me. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing that I've learned so far.
Yeah. I would say it's similar for me. I've heard that saying that says your child is a mirror, and
Yeah.
it's so true because once you have kids, you realize that they're going to become what you show them. So I think nothing gives you more perspective than something like that, because people
Yeah.
can tell you that you need to change or whatever. Even your spouse, I think, they
Mm-hmm.
can tell you you need to change this, you need to change this, but it's just something different about once your child is here and you can see that they're learning from you,
Mm.
and not by what you say, by what you do,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
then you realize, okay, if I don't actually do things, they they're not going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I mean, that saying actions speak louder than words. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing more true when it comes to kids.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell them to eat their vegetables. If you don't do it, they're not going to do it.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it just put in everything into perspective for me, that I had to become everything I would want him to become. So if I want him to eat healthy, I have to eat healthy. If I want him to take care of his body and be healthy, I have to do that. If I want him to be able to regulate his emotions, I have
Mm-hmm.
to show him how to do that. I have to be able to regulate my emotions. I can't be losing my temper and yelling at him or Monica. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, eat healthy, get in shape, go to therapy, work on my traumas, work on being able to regulate my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's not enough to help him through difficult emotions. I have to show him how you work through difficult emotions. So
Mm-hmm.
if I can't do that myself, how can I show him?
Right.
So yeah, it was like this overwhelming drive to just become the best version of myself, right? Because whatever I become, he's going to become, so I have to become everything that I want for him, and there's no shortcuts to that. Like, there's just putting in the work. Yeah, in all aspects. So yeah, that saying that your child is a mirror, it's very true. Whatever your shortcomings are, staring you in the face every day,
Yep.
and also your best qualities. It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to just be negative. Your best qualities, they also remind you of that every single day. So yeah, it's an amazing blessing to have Romeito, because you hear parents say your kids teach you so much, but so many people can tell you things, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not until you have your own kids that you realize all those things people were saying are so true.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they teach you so much. I have to be more patient, right? I want him to be patient. I want him to be good with his emotions. I want him to be healthy. All those good qualities, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it was such a big motivator to have that purpose, to know that you have to be the best example for somebody.
Mm-hmm. And even if someone doesn't have kids, I think the lesson that I'm also learning is there's times where I feel like, man, I really wish I would have just figured this out like before I had kids. And I'm talking about that self love, that focus on myself that I didn't have before. And I start to feel like feelings of like, not like maybe frustration,
Hmm.
with myself. But then I'm like, I have to just understand that this was the journey. It almost was like it needed to happen this way. And yeah, I mean, even if you don't have kids, like the lesson that I wish I would have learned is I wish I would have just put myself first. And I feel like especially in our culture, I feel there's a lot of guilt, like because we do come from that first generation, second generation experience of like we sacrifice so much for us to come here, for you to focus on yourself, all those things, that are usually told
Yeah.
to us. Like if you're not going to do this, you're going to disappoint the family and things like that. But like it doesn't have to necessarily be about being selfish. It's about being true to yourself. Like I think we all just want each of us to be happy,
Yeah.
like truly genuinely happy. Like when I think about my kids, if I'm thinking that way about myself right now, like I should truly be happy, then I start to think about the kids, like, what if they tell me they're truly happy without going to college or things like that? And I would really be okay with that,
Yeah.
like, the thing is, it's like focusing on the happiness,
Yeah.
but their happiness. So they're the ones that are going to tell us, this is what makes me happy.
Mm.
I can't tell them, like, this is what should make you happy.
Yeah.
And growing up, I felt like that's how it was. It was, you needed to do things that would make your parents happy or proud of you and things like that. And there was decisions that I made, like, when I switched schools after college, like, definitely upset, one parent over the other. Like, they both had their own ideas of what they wanted for me. And that was hard because then I felt like, am I really being true to myself? But somehow, some way, I feel like I was always true to myself. Maybe
Yeah.
I didn't have that self love like I have it today, but I look at my journey and I'm like, wow, but I was still,
Yeah.
doing things for myself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, do you feel like that you had those moments too, where you were kind of like, this is hard. This is what they want me to do, but this is not what makes me happy.
I think if I look back, I don't necessarily feel like I felt that way.
Okay.
Um
I could
yeah,
see that as well.
I feel like I was always doing what I thought like I needed to do
Yeah.
for the future that I saw for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I definitely did lack, I would say, maybe the confidence, maybe clarity as well as
Mm-hmm.
to what that really is. Like I thought I was doing what I wanted to do or what I should do for myself, but I didn't necessarily know what that was. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I moved here right after high school because I was like, I'm not staying in Kentucky. There's nothing there
Yeah.
for me. So I
Yeah.
knew that for a long time. So I was like, I'm graduating, I'm going to Chicago, and I'm just gonna start building my future. So yeah, once I got here, I was just doing what I felt I needed to do for myself to get to where I wanted to be. And it's actually interesting because I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
reflecting about this just yesterday or the other day.
Really?
Yeah, just how I moved here after high school at 18
Mm.
with, I don't know, probably a couple $100 of savings, my possessions, whatever they were at that time, clothes.
I fit in your car,
Yeah,
basically.
whatever fit in the car.
Yeah.
Drove up here. I had an apartment with you, but I had rent, I had car insurance, whatever, had stuff to pay for, and
Yeah.
I had no job. I came up here without a plan, basically, other than where to live. Um, and it's just crazy to think that I went from that, having, like I said, a couple $100 to where I am today.
Mm.
Now,
Yeah.
owning my own home, having a second property as an investment, having investments, having a family now, and we're all just being in the position that I am, and just looking back at where I started. So yeah, it's crazy to think about, like, how did I start with nothing basically and
Yeah.
get here
Yeah.
and really not knowing a whole lot other than need to work hard, go to school, be educated, save money, some of those general lessons. But outside of that, nothing about investing, nothing about real estate, all that stuff. So I just want to go back to what we were talking about before with the kids, because
Mm-hmm.
I had one train of thought. Um, you were talking about the self-love and all
Mm-hmm.
of that. That's been a very big thing for me too. It's kind of weird to say I wouldn't have thought this would have happened, but having Romito also pushed me to focus more on myself, which is weird to say, right? Because you think you have your kids, it's all about your kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But having him has pushed me to take care of myself. So working out, taking time to go to the gym, taking time to work on my passions, taking time to go to therapy, work on my mental health. Because again, if I do that, like, I'll be a better version for him, not just as his father, but as an example for what he will become. So that's been such a blessing as well, because would I otherwise be focusing this much on myself? I don't know.
I mean,
Um,
you were before,
yeah,
which is nice to see because it's like you always did that for yourself before
yeah.
and you were very driven. So it's just kind of nice to see that you're still doing it and you figured out how to do it, because that's where I'm at. Especially as a mom, I feel like it's harder to get to that
Oh, no, yeah,
place.
for sure. And I recognize that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not naive about that.
Yeah, so it's like even for me, it's like still so hard to do some of the things that you're doing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was also going to say, your experience when you left the house when you graduated high school was definitely different than mine. Again, like just being different, same household, different. I was the oldest. So, of
Mhm.
course, I was the first one to leave the house. So there was a lot more maybe pressure, things told to me
Yeah.
that I needed to do. So I felt that pressure,
Yeah.
So I was always going through life trying to make decisions for myself, I should say, but with having like intense pressure from family. So, and even just that I eventually put on myself from years of hearing that, it's like I have to do this, I have to do that. And
Yeah.
I struggled a lot with college too. It took me a while to graduate because I took a lot of breaks, and I was so happy that I did because I was like, I'm just going to take the semester off. It
Yeah.
took me 8 years to get my bachelor's while also working full time. So I just knew, like, even then, I'm like, I just don't have capacity for this, like
Yeah.
mentally. I can't just be in my room and force myself to study for hours,
Yeah.
it will not be good for my mental health.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's just interesting, like oldest daughter in a, Latino household, like
Yeah.
how those pressures can be different. And for you, I felt like there was a part of me that would think back and be like, why isn't he like put with or met with pressure like I am, Not that I
Yeah.
wished it on you, but I
Yeah.
would always remember questioning like, why is it so easy for him to make a decision and everyone just really accepts it?
Yeah.
It's so different for, in my case, myself as a woman and as the oldest.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I still somehow just kind of followed my heart even
Yeah.
when I didn't have those lessons that I feel like I've learned now, like that self-love. But and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, besides being an example to the kids, it's like I want to love myself. Because at the end of the day, the kids are going to, get old one day and have their own families, and I still have to have that self-love for myself,
Yeah.
because I
Mhm.
got to be able to take care of myself. But also to, again, showing that to your kids. Cuz even as we get older, like our relationship with our parents change, but we still very much like are learning from each other,
Yeah.
and like still being able to like relate, even
Mhm.
with our parents when we talk to them, there's things that we can relate to now because we're adults,
Yeah.
so I still,
Mhm.
even at that point, always want to be an example to my kids even
Yeah.
when we're older and having other conversations.
Yeah. Yeah,
um
because you will always be in a phase ahead of them. We're obviously in a stage that they're not in yet. So
mhm,
yeah, there's always something for us to teach and show them. So
yeah.
I think in that sense we're both the same. Like for Romito, like that's why I struggle with even wanting him to go to school. I know what my experience was in school, and I
Yeah.
feel like all it did was take my confidence, confuse me, and didn't build me up in any kind of way. It didn't educate me in a meaningful way. And so it wasn't until after college that I started to, okay, who am I? What are my strengths? What am I good at? What's my passion? When ideally you should find that out in school, right? When you're young, you can see what they're interested in, you can see what they gravitate towards, and you can see what they're truly passionate about, and you can support them with that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I mean, you see examples of that, kids that become athletes or they become artists or musicians. You see the example of what it's like to have that support and just following what the child wants to do. And so
Yeah.
I think that's all I want for him is to just find what, like you said, makes him happy,
Hmm.
whatever he's good at, whatever he enjoys, and just supporting him and having him do that. Not feeling like, okay, you need to do this sport or you need to be a doctor or whatever. I feel like there can be a lot of that in parenting. And so, yeah, I mean, it's important to remember that they are their own person with their own life to live. So, yeah, that's all I want for him because I know obviously firsthand what it's like to go through that. And it takes a lot of work to kind of peel back all those layers of expectations and pressure from whoever it might be. Like
Hmm.
all that stuff builds up over time, and what you truly want is underneath all of that.
Hmm.
So you have to like peel all that stuff back and get to the core of like, okay, what is it that I truly want? to
Mm-hmm.
do, which is sometimes hard to do. So I feel like
Yeah.
I'm still doing that, trying to
Yeah.
figure out what I want in life, all those things.
Yeah, being true to yourself, and yeah, like being able to mute like the outside noise, that can be
Hmm.
hard. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think the what I'm learning too with like the self-love and self-confidence is really being connected to yourself and being able to like think for yourself and make the decisions that are best for you. But I did want to ask a question, just a last question that I had thought about to end the episode, just something more like fun, because like we're talking about a
Yeah.
lot of like childhood stuff, but
Hmm.
even like our kids, and like the questions are gonna come like soon, like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up, things like that. What is one thing that you remembered as a kid that you wanted to be when you grew up, like something that you felt like you really wanted to do?
I definitely always wanted to have something with construction. I was always very interested in that. Specifically, I think I probably wanted to be like a carpenter, at some
Yeah.
point. So,
You were in classes for it too, right?
yeah.
In high school?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I did that 2-year program in high school, and I mean, I loved that,
Yeah.
and I did want to go to like carpentry school, but with my back issues, honestly, if it wasn't for my back problems, I would have done it,
Oh, wow.
for sure. Like just also knowing how I am, I'll at least try something. So I know I would have at least tried it for sure if I didn't
Mhm.
have my back problems. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that kept me from doing that, but I mean, it led me to where I'm at now. So, and I can still do home design or something.
Mhm.
And I think that's where I'm at now. Like, I still very much have that desire
Mhm.
um, to do something in that sort of realm. So, I'm starting to explore what that is. I did a lot of the renovations here with Monica's parents. I did
Mhm.
our garden in the back. So that to me is just exploring more of that, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to continue to do that. I've always seen myself doing something, working with my hands, creating things, specifically home design stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that I think is still there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that from you
Yeah.
for sure. For
What
me,
about you?
I feel like I had like so many ideas, and for a long time it was like fashion. I wanted to do something with fashion. I never really knew what. I knew I didn't want to create the garments. That for sure I knew.
Like, I don't want to be sewing
Yeah,
and
no, I didn't
doing
want to
all that.
be like the tedious work, because that's just how I am. Like, especially with my anxiety, some things just overwhelm me. Although I do want to learn how to sew, but well, yeah. So I was always kind of like fashion, but another one that I really, as I'm in this journey, it's crazy because I'm doing a lot of like work on my inner child, and you always hear that, right? But for me, it's been like connecting to like little Yesenia, and I try to remember like fun stuff like this, like
Mm,
what
yeah.
did you like doing as a kid, or what would you like wish that you wanted to do?
Yeah.
And one of them for me was to be a dancer, to be a choreographer, like always. And
Yeah.
because I always would be doing that at home, like I would always be in my room
Yeah.
just dancing, or in the
Mm.
bathroom before taking a shower, I would have a little dance session, and I just loved dancing. I
Yeah.
loved how I felt. I loved watching music videos. Even to this day, I will just sit and watch music videos,
Yeah.
especially like Michael Jackson videos. Those were my favorite by far. But then I think to myself now as an adult, and I'm like, man, imagine if I would have just been given the opportunity to like actually be in dance and do these things. Like, could I have become, dancing in Lady Gaga's video? Like, that's a
Yeah.
dream,
Yeah. Yeah.
like it is something that I would have wanted to do. So I think about that for the kids, and I'm like, how can I really help them be their best at
Yeah.
whatever it is that they want to do? It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be like what we always think: go to college, get yourself a corporate job. All that has kind of changed for me.
Yeah.
So, and I know I can still do things now,
Yeah.
like I've been wanting to look for like a dance studio or something like that. But again, that's going back to like being true to myself. Like those things were true as a kid, and we don't have to look at it and be like, oh, that was so silly. Like,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
wanted to do that. I thought I could do that.
Yeah.
Like, no, I could have really done it, and I could still do it now,
Yeah.
to some form.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like thinking about like those fun questions.
That's funny that
But
you say that.
what
That's funny that you say that because
about the dance?
yeah, because I tell Monica that a lot. I'm like,
Yeah.
I like same. I watch like the dance videos, like specifically like break dancing, and I'm like, I would just
Yes.
love to know how to do that, like some of the break dancing.
I know you've always liked to dance too,
Yeah,
and you
so
even
I'm
do
just
like the dance.
like same I feel the same way. Like if I had the opportunity to be in dance, like it may not have been a career, but I probably would have been into it for at least a period, you know? Like you said, just the fact that I never even tried it or got to do it.
Mm.
Again, I'm not saying it would have been my career. I would have been a dancer, but
But
no,
maybe
you
too.
have phases in your
Mhm.
life. So yeah, it could have been one of those things that I was into. I
It
feel like I would have
doesn't
loved to learn doing that.
it doesn't even need to be like a, again, like a passion that was just like for when you were a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Like it could still be something now, and like
Hmm.
how can you do it now? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like can you do intentional workouts with dancing, or
Hmm.
maybe join a community dance
Yeah.
get together or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like where my mind's at now, is like if I wasn't able to do that as a kid, I can do it now. And I
Yeah.
can teach my kids like you can do whatever you want to do, you
Yeah.
know? And maybe some things might not be a full career, maybe some things will, you
Yeah.
know? But
Yeah, I think a way to do that, like you were saying, how do I do that for them?
mm,
You know, I think part of that is you doing it yourself,
yeah.
you know, so if they see you try things just because, you know, like
Mhm.
they're gonna want to do the same thing, and also exposing them to different things. So finding a dance class, you can probably see pretty quickly if they're into it or not. So I think that's two ways that you can do that for them. And so just going back to how like Romeito motivates me and gives me purpose, that is also something like exploring my passions, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm still present and I don't want time to be taken away from spending it with him. But if I can be intentional with that time on exploring my passions or whatever, or even include him in something, you
Mm.
know, like the projects that I talked about, like I would love to include him in that. Like, what if he ends up loving it? You know, like what
Mhm.
if it becomes a family business and he loves to do that? You know, like you just never know. Also, including them in things. So I
Sure.
definitely would love to do that when he's older. You know, like show him how to do projects, having him help me.
Mm.
That would be just amazing. You know, to
Yeah.
create more of a connection and spark that interest in them. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely, because it can't just be work
Yeah.
and home and that's it, you know. We have to, you know, get back to like how we thought as kids, you know, like
Yeah.
fun stuff. Like we can
Mm-hmm.
do things for fun as adults, and that fun doesn't always have to be going out as well too. I mean, unless it's your thing, but for me,
Yeah.
it's definitely not. For me, I want to be more intentional about finding hobbies or finding things that really feed my soul, like trying different things. So, but yeah, I think the questions today were really good for
Yeah.
our second episode, like more like fun questions, tying
Mm-hmm.
them back to our childhood too. So thank you everyone for listening. Hope you're still enjoying the episodes, and give us any feedback that you might have, or if you have any questions that come up, like that'd be cool too to like maybe answer some. And yeah, we'll plan the next episode.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're, you know, I don't know if you're interested in using cannabis, you've never used it, and you're curious about using it for your mental health or even like with me, chronic pain or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've been through my own journey with that. So yeah, if you have any questions around that or just, yeah, any feedback would be awesome. Um, but yeah, thanks again for listening. And we hope you guys enjoy this episode. And we'll see you guys on the next one.